Segment, how a country created with the help of the Obama administration is now causing some problems for the U.S. and its allies. Chief National Security Correspondent Jennifer Griffin is at the Pentagon. She tells us what's going on in South Sudan.
In 2011, the Obama administration helped create the world's newest country, South Sudan. Susan Rice, UN ambassador at the time, visited with a high-profile delegation months before the inauguration. 2 years later, South Sudan fell into civil war, killing 400,000 people.
It was a country that was midwifed by the United States. Since then, no single election has taken place in the country.
Peter Ajak, an opposition leader from South Sudan living in exile in the U.S., warns his country's oil, gold, and diamonds are now being used to fund the war in Ukraine, serving as Vladimir Putin's personal ATM.
South Sudan has started turning toward Russia.
At the UN General Assembly in September, South Sudan's president, who oversees a fiefdom of corruption, was looking for weapons.
We call upon the United Nations to lift the arms embargo imposed on us.
He flew straight to Moscow after the U.S. refused his request to meet with President Biden.
Since then, a number of Russian operatives have arrived in the country. This country that was born on the promise of democracy is now essentially becoming a puppet of the Russian regime.
At the beginning of October, Wagner mercenaries brought weapons to South Sudan in exchange for young recruits to fight for Russia in Ukraine.
They are looking for ways to sustain that war, thinking that allies of Ukraine in the West, like in the United States and in Europe, may get tired.
Today marks nearly 30 years to the day that the leaders of Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus met at a hunting cabin in the Belarusian forest and agreed to dissolve the Soviet Union. Today, Moscow fired cruise missiles at Kyiv as pro-Putin loyalists on Russian state television praised the U.S. Congress for blocking Ukraine aid. Rich?
Jen, there were more attacks on U.S. troops in Syria and Iraq and the U.S. embassy in Baghdad.
That's right, Rich. A senior U.S. defense official tells me there were 10 more attacks by Iranian-backed proxies on U.S. forces in the past 24 hours using a combination of rockets, mortars, and armed drones.